And now I'm going to show you how to make the perfect meringue. And more importantly, what we're going to try and learn here is understanding what happens when you make a meringue and why things don't work. The first thing we really have to do is to look at the equipment that we're going to use. And the enemy of a meringue is fat. So what you have to do is to make sure that your mixer, your utensils, your spoons, everything is completely fat-free and clean. And what I always do is just use a little bit of lemon. And all that does is just cuts through any little traces of fat that might be in the bowl. And then just give the equipment just a wipe out with some paper. So the recipe that we're using today, again, it's a fairly straightforward recipe. It's 1 egg white to 50 grams of caster sugar. So what we have to do is to make sure that we don't have any yolk at all in the whites. And I always try my best not to even burst the yolk, so that if you're then using the yolks later on, they're easily counted and you don't lose any in the bowl. If you do get a little bit of yolk in with the white, it's not a disaster. But what I would say is use half of the shell to remove it if it does go in, or even a bit of shell. And what happens is when you place the shell in, the shell or any white will be caught much easier using the shell as opposed to your finger. So we've got our 4 whites. Sometimes I think the problem with meringue is that people aren't sure when the sugar goes in. You know, so it's really important. You're almost looking, you need to get all that air and all that volume in there before you start adding the sugar. You know, I've seen people add it in early on. It's really difficult to get a really nice light meringue. Another thing that really helps meringue is a little bit of lemon juice. So we're going to put the machine on. We're going to start it off kind of medium speed until we start getting some air in, and then we're going to whack it full up. So it'll just take about 2 minutes. So you can now see the meringue has really started to come up. I'm going to give that just 1 more minute at high speed before I start to add the sugar. So in here I've got 200 grams of caster sugar. And I'm going to gradually add this in whilst the mixer's at high speed. And what you'll notice is the meringue starts to get glossy as the sugar starts to dissolve. And we really want to whip this up until it's really nice and stiff. So here we have a really nice stiff meringue, and the real test is it should be able to be turned upside down, normally over someone's head, but I'm not that brave. So that's meringue. Another skill that's worth to point out in this particular task is piping. First thing is filling the piping bag. There's a number of things people do wrong. They try and fill like so and then get the meringue everywhere. Or they sometimes put in too much, so it's really important not to put in too much meringue. This is a type of job that an extra hand would help with. So I always use some sort of container, bowl or jug, so that it leaves my two hands free to then fill the bag. Nice, glossy, mixture. From there, we'll carefully remove the bag from the jug. And we're going to allow the mixture just to drop into the bag. And what we're trying to avoid here is air. We're trying to make sure there's no air. So, piping bags. This might sound strange, but I imagine holding a piping bag like holding a little newborn baby. So you support it by its head and then you hold its middle. So you've got that support. And I always imagine the sort of top bit, and then you use your thumb to keep the bag tight. And the secret of consistency when you're piping anything, whether it be cream or meringue, is that you've got the pressure in the bag is the same throughout. So every time you pipe, you turn the bag just a little bit. And what I try and avoid is the squeezing the middle of the bag. So all the pressure's at the top. So we're going to do some piping. So probably the simplest one is little twist, little twist. And meringue won't really expand too much, so you can get them fairly close. And to cook the meringue, you're looking at a dry oven, probably about 100 degrees centigrade, which is probably about 240, I think, Fahrenheit. Again, you can do these any size you wish, or any shape, just depending on what your end result is you're looking for. Again, so twist the bag, pushing from the top, your left hand's guiding. And that's our piped little meringue shells.